Hey there, I hope you're doing well. Just a little FYI, all of the materials you see in today's video will be listed down in the description. So as you already saw in the title of this video, this painting did not go to plan. So my first tip on how to keep going when your art isn't working out is to do with all of the preliminary work. It's funny because I'm always saying, make sure you do A, B, and C so you won't have any surprises while you work. And I did all of those things. I made tons of sketches for this painting, I planned out my color palette, I made sure to take my time on the final sketch, but it still didn't turn out how I wanted it to. I also faced several challenges and a few setbacks while painting this, as you can see here with the tape. So I went into this right from the start kind of knowing that it was going to be a challenge for me, but I was very determined to figure out how to execute this painting in the way I had envisioned. Because sometimes my art doesn't come out the way I had planned, but it's very important for me to figure out where I went wrong and how I can learn from those mistakes so that this doesn't become a regular occurrence. That's why the preliminary work is so important, because even in an instance like this where I was still a bit unsure of where do I go next, what colors do I mix, I always had a solid reference to look back to. My color comp was able to kind of remind me of what I wanted the finished piece to look like. And also using so many different shades of green and blue while still trying to make sure there's enough contrast between all these different elements like the tree trunk and the sky and the leaves and the ground the kids are standing on and the kids themselves. That was a lot, and that was something I figured I would struggle with, and I definitely did. For me though, I think a big part of working traditionally is really just about allowing myself to make some mistakes and find out why that happened and how I can avoid making it again. But being able to refer back to a reference just allowed me to not feel nearly as lost or unsure of myself and my choices while painting. I will mention that by this point, I was quite happy with how the piece was turning out. I do think, however, that once I got to the leaves of the tree, that was when I started to struggle more, as you can see here, with contrast, or really the lack of contrast. And when I say that, I mean that my painting was mostly made up of very similar tones, so like mid-tone on mid-tone, dark on dark, which really didn't allow for any elements to stand apart from one another. You can see here, I took a photo on my phone and put a black and white filter over it, and those colors just immediately looked so similar, and that was a very frustrating realization, but I think a very necessary one for me to realize that change was needed here. I did try to paint over the initial color I put on the trees, but honestly I was just getting frustrated because it still wasn't turning out. So I had to take a step back and think, where do I go from here? How do I move forward? I realized that I really needed to take a step away, which is exactly what I did. And here's tip number 2, which is to take breaks. Now I will tell y'all that I took so many breaks while painting this because I just kept getting frustrated. I would try making some kind of adjustment only to find that it made the whole thing look way worse. So I was very lenient with myself in allowing for breaks. And I'm talking like painting for 15 minutes and then walking away for 30. It really just allowed me to come back to this piece with a clearer head and a more positive mindset so that I was capable of making smarter choices. And after taking a few days off, I decided that it was time for me to come back and try to tackle this again, which leads me to my third tip: work smarter. By this point, there were evident layers under the leaves because of all of the attempts I'd made at getting the color correct. So rather than laying another color on top and risk it not working again, I decided to head over to my iPad and try reworking my color comp to see how that would look. and I am so proud to say that I was finally getting somewhere. I was making a breakthrough, and I was so glad that I took time away from this piece to allow myself to come to this very obvious realization of just going back to my iPad. I was finally on the mend, the days were looking brighter, and then I took a 2-week break. There was just a lot going on, and I was working on other projects, so this piece kind of got pushed to the side, and in that time, my palette dried up. So I thought it would be easier to finish up the rest of the painting digitally. That way I wouldn't have to worry about remixing all my colors or anything like that, which is my very long-winded way of bringing up my fourth tip: change how you're working. Finishing this piece digitally just felt like the best option for me and where I was at in my process. So I decided to scan this painting in at 600 dpi in several sections, and then in Photoshop I used the photo merge feature to bring all of my segmented scans together. Then to finish this painting, I'm using my laptop with my Wacom Intuos Pro in medium. Now in the past, I've almost been against doing mixed media in this way. I used to sort of like take pride, I guess, in finishing a piece traditionally, which I think in a way makes sense, but I am glad to say I have overcome that, and I'm no longer against it, and I gladly welcome this method. I think it's so clever and really a bit easier to do half or 3/4 of the piece traditionally, and then finish up all those fine details, last little bits of the painting on a tablet or a computer. Something else I love about finishing a painting digitally is that it allows for so much more experimentation, where I don't have to worry about getting everything right the first time because it's significantly easier to erase and delete layers. I think another way to use programs like this is to get the base done with, paint, colored pencil, whatever the medium, and then with a digital program like Photoshop or Procreate, go in and use it to just simply clean up like little mistakes, maybe adjust things like saturation, contrast, brightness. I love the amount of hypothetical room there is to play around and kind of figure out what works and what doesn't without compromising any of that hard work that I've put in from the start. So because of this, I find this method to be very low risk, and I love that. So here is the finished piece, and I am so happy with it. I really think doing all the preliminary work, allowing myself to have tons and tons of breaks, working smarter, and changing up how I was working made the final piece what it is today, and I'm quite pleased with the result. I really hope these tips have helped you in some way. As always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!